Okay, so this is being recorded. So for the people that can't join us this evening, that they can look at the recording afterwards. So this is just a very short talk ahead of the walk that we're doing on Sunday. So just looking at a bit of the birdsong that we'll be going out to look for. Some of you, I think, will probably would have seen most of this before, but what we'll do is, as I say, it's being recorded, and we'll send it round this evening, so everybody can sort of review it in their own time as well. So for some reason, there seems to be a bit of a lag on this, so it's not changing. There we go. That was probably going to go a couple of times because I pressed the button twice. But okay, so the talk tonight is introduction to bird song in the New Forest. So the overall, what we're going to be looking at is why do birds sing, looking at their different types of songs and calls, the benefits of learning bird songs and calls, and the best ways to go about that. Then we're going to look at some of additional resources and a few other bits and pieces before looking at just a handful of species that we're going to focus on when we're out in the field. And so, first of all, vocalization. Why do birds sing? There's lots of reasons why birds sing or vocalize. The main thing that we'll be looking out for and listening for is song, and there's lots of reasons why a bird might be singing. They could be, as it says here, declaring their breeding or their feeding territory, or it could be both of those. It could be courtship, so they could be singing to impress the opposite sex, and it's also a sign of health and experience. And so we know as birds go through life, as they mature, they hone their songs get stronger and sharper. To our ears, it sounds the same, but the individual birds, individual species can pick up differences, minute differences in song that tell them a lot about the individual and how experienced they are. And the more experienced an individual, obviously, the better it's going to be as a breeding partner. But that's song, and that's going to be our main focus is song. But there is a whole other broad repertoire that birds have, including calls. So there's, as it says there, flight contact calls. So if you have a flock of birds, species like redwing or finches, will often have a contact call where they're communicating to one another, just basically saying, I'm still here. And then there's reassurance calls as well, which is similar to the flight contact call. But if you think a good example of that is a species like long-tailed tit, or any of our tits or crests, or those species that are used to foraging around in the undergrowth. So they'll constantly call to one another to let them know that they're still there. And then communication is another really important part of a bird's repertoire of vocalization. So I've studied hawfinch for a long time, and over that time, we've picked up different very subtle differences in calls that mean ever so slightly different things. And you can start to pick up if an individual is agitated or is excited because it's found a food source, or various other things, and their calls vary ever so slightly. But I wouldn't get too hung up on all of that. It's mainly song that we're looking at. But the third one here is the alarm call. So the alarm call is very universal. So each species alarm call might be ever so slightly different, but it's all doing the same thing. And different species sort of interspecies call, really, where they will all respond, and it's generally a hard, sharp, abrasive call that's delivered urgently. That's an alarm call. Okay, so there's lots of reasons why birds will vocalize, but for us, the benefit of it is it helps us find and identify species. And so, learning birdsong. First of all, why learn birdsong? And there's lots of different reasons for that. For me personally, it just enhances your experience in the field. It's fun, it's nice, and it helps you connect to the birds a little bit more. As it says here, it also helps find unusual species. And so if you whether that be in your back garden, in the New Forest, down on the marshes, wherever you might be, if you get to learn your local birds, so if it's in your garden and you've got regular chaffinch and blue tit and robin, you get to know those quite well. And you hear something different. It may not be a rare bird, but something that doesn't normally occur in your garden. By hearing it, you can sort of hone in straight away and go, oh yeah, you know, you may not necessarily know what it is, but by hearing something different, enables them to hone in and look at that. And it's almost essential for field survey work. So a lot of the field survey work that we do, thank you, it's a cup of tea, thank you. A lot of the field survey work that we do in the New Forest is in the woodlands. And so, you know, a lot of the birds that we're looking at or monitoring in the woodlands, you just don't see. A lot of it we're recording from hearing them rather than seeing them. Probably 80% of the birds that I actually write down in my book and record are probably heard and not seen. So it is an important part of field work, but really the main thing is just that it's nice, it's fun, and it enhances your time out and about. So how to learn birdsong? First of all, get to know your common ones first. So whatever that might be in the location that you're in, robin, blackbird, song thrush, get to know them, and then that helps. But the best, you know, our learning process for each of us is going to be individual. But personally, I've always found it best to learn in the field. So when you hear a bird, looking at it and observing it, so you're making that visual connection. So rather than using tapes or apps or anything like that, just listening to the song, looking at the bird, and that's kind of how I learned my first bird that I got to know the song really well was when I was a young lad, not even a teenager probably, was the willow warbler that was in my local area. I kept on hearing it singing one spring, and it just intrigued me, and yeah, I always think of that every time I hear of a willow warbler now. But then just spend time watching the birds as well. Just spend time with them. But the main thing, as I say there, is to enjoy it. And so not to stress about it. So don't, I find, you know, the more you put yourself under pressure about learning stuff, learning whatever it might be, the harder it becomes. So just enjoy it for what it is and accept. Just accept. You're not, you know, it takes time. It takes a long time. And so just take your time with it and enjoy it. But then, as I say at the very bottom there, when I was learning willow warbler and Dartford warbler was one that I learned as a kid. We didn't have mobile phones then, but a good tip now, if there's a target species you want to actually hear or to find, put their song as your ringtone on your phone. That's a really good way of making it stick in your head. So when you hear that out in the field, it cuts through everything else. So a little bit about resources. Xenocanto is a great website which has a whole host of recordings on it that people upload. So not only do you get to hear all the common songs, but all the various different calls and alarm calls, contact calls, and so on. So Xenocanto is a great resource. I always recommend the Collins Bird Guide app, which is just essentially just a bird guide as an app, but within that it has the recordings of the birds that you can hear. And then in recent months on my radar, it's not written here, but is Merlin. So Merlin seems to be a great app that you can open up while you're in the field, and it'll tell you what it can hear singing around nearby. But I always like to add a word of caution with these apps, is they're not always 100%. So even if it tells you you're in the middle of the woods and you've got a hoopoo, don't take its word for it. Make sure you lay eyes on it before you accept the diagnosis. And then a little bit about playback. So quite a few people have been use playback from time to time, but just a word of caution that at this time of year it's actually illegal to use playback on Schedule 1 species, and so that's birds like firecrest, Dartford warbler, and some of our raptors and well, woodlark and species like that. So you have to use playback with caution, and it can cause stress during the breeding season. So although playback's used by ringers off season, it's best just to to avoid it personally. It's my own personal view. So we'll go straight into the birds because I know I promised would only be half an hour and we're 10 minutes in already. So siskin. So these are just a series of birds that hopefully we'll encounter while we're out and about on Sunday. So we're starting off with siskin, a common species across the forest. And one that we'll almost certainly hear while we're out. So the call is quite distinctive. I'll play the call, and I'm hoping this comes through on the recording. So that's a single bird calling. Says they'll issue that call while they're either perched or in flight as a contact call. So that's often what you'll hear first of all with siskin, but they are a gregarious species. So yeah, generally you won't have a single siskin, you'll have a flock, and so you'll be hearing a cacophony of this contact call going back and forth. But it's quite distinctive, and it cuts through the woodland. Generally, siskins are moving around at treetop height or above, but you can hear that quite clearly. But I put Siskin on because it is one of my favorite songs. So we'll play the song. It's a fantastic song it's almost like I think of Siskin as it's trying to squeeze everything in all in one go. So it's really varied, rich, melodic, cool. That it really gives a song, sorry, that it gives it everything it's got. So I'll play it and we'll have a quick listen. So I'll stop it there because it goes on and on and on. But so I think of siskin. It's just twittering. It's just a twittering contact a call. We can't. There's a note saying you can't hear the song. Mm. Right. Not sure why that is.
Oh, Rob's just messaged me.
I was saying I can't hear the song.
Yeah, I can't hear the song.
Okay. So this is a problem we've not had before. Let me see if there's a setting on here.
What are you trying to?
All right. I was just doing share sound. So just anybody tell me if that's working at all? Yes. Okay. Right. Okay. Good. Okay. Right. So we'll just start again. If anybody can't hear it, please message. Yeah. Okay. So we'll play the call again very quickly. Oh no, sorry, that's the song. This is the call. Oh dear, oh dear. It's all. So that was Siskin call. So it's a single sort of, as it says there, Tlu, that's repeated constantly. But as I said before, just to be cautious, because often you'll get a group of siskins. You don't often get singles like that. But I'll play the song again. So we were on song before, and the song is a fantastic, like I say, it's a fantastic happy song where it's just trying to, it feels like it's just trying to get it all out in one go. So it's just basically it's just twittering and chattering. It's a combination of just like the call, really, but it's just in lots of different tones. Let's play it. There you go. That's a lovely, just a beautiful song where it just seems so happy, and it's just like trying to squeeze everything out all in one go. Like it's got no patience. It's just got to get it all out there. Siskins will sing all year round, but generally on out of season, it'll be on calm, sunny, mild days. But this time of year they will sing, and I'm hoping we'll hear them singing tomorrow. So it's quite distinctive. Probably the closest you get to that is something like a goldfinch, but it's still quite different. It's a beautiful song, like I say, but it's got no kind of melody to it as such. It's just getting it all out. Often sings in flight, so it will sing from a perch, but it'll fly around in a circle and sing in flight as well. Siskin are breeding all across the New Forest, in, as it says at the bottom there, conifer woodlands or areas where we've got birch or alder. So we'll be in that environment on Sunday. So yeah, we'll keep an ear out for siskin. Next one is crossbill. So crossbill is another species we get all across the New Forest, and it's one that generally you'll identify from call first. So it's very rare you see it before you hear it. It's normally the other way around, you hear them first. And it's their call, like the siskin, it's their call is often what you hear. So it's quite a hard, far-carrying call that's delivered often from on high, so that when they're in flight. So I'll play it. So that's yeah, as it says there, a metallic lip, but it's so the call is a lot like a chaffinch's call. But it's harder and stronger and kind of more aggressive, sort of very much down to business. It's sort of that is what it is, and you know, it just gets on with it, no messing. But the thing is with a chaffinch, they'll often call when they're perched. Crossbill will call when they're perched, but more often when they're flying around. But it's just hard and far carrying, so you can often hear crossbill from an awful long way away. And so their song, so it's the males that deliver the song. We're right at the end of the song period because they're an early nester. So most of our crossbills that are nesting in the forest have finished breeding already. But they will still sing, especially on a sunny day. As Sunday is due to be quite a sunny day, so I'm hoping we might hear crossbill singing. And it's basically a series of calls, and quite varied. But this up there, yeah. So there we go. So it's just an exaggerated series of calls. You struggle to call that a song, to be honest, but that is the song. But yeah, again, it's delivered from on high. So generally, it's always going to be in conifer, and generally right at the tops, either flying over or perched in the top. We will occasionally find them. I found some the other day that were feeding, and they were doing the odd contact call, but when they're feeding, they're often quiet. So thing to look out for, as it says there at the bottom, if you're walking through a conifer woodland and you see like husks drifting down from on high, it's worth stopping and having a look, because that could mean there's a crossbill feeding. Okay, so that's crossbill. Oh, so the woodpeckers. So we're going to look at both lesser spotted woodpecker and great spotted woodpecker. So drumming is the main thing. So we're right bang on season for the great spots. We're getting towards the end of the season for lesser spots, but you often still get them drumming into mid-April. So both woodpeckers or have a drum, a distinctive drum, but they also both have a call. Their calls are really quite different, but the drumming, what we're not so much listening to the sound, but more the tempo of the drumming. So a lesser spotted woodpecker's drumming is constant and hard and goes on and on and on. And I say they're reminiscent of a machine gun. To my mind, it's like when you watch an old World War II film and they've got the machine guns going, and that's kind of what it's like. It just goes on and on and on with a small gap in between. So by contrast, a great spotted woodpecker is almost like the polar opposite. It's a really short drum with a long gap, and a lesser spot is a long drum with a short gap. We'll play both so we can hear both. But both in both species, the male and the female will drum. The males drum harder and longer in both species. But one thing you tend to think of, because lesser spotted woodpeckers are quite small, lesser spotted woodpeckers are kind of the size of a greenfinch. By comparison, a great spotted woodpecker is, you're talking more sort of blackbird sort of size. You would think that the great spot is louder than the lesser spot, and that is often the way, but it all depends on what they're drumming on and the resonance of what they're drumming on. So quite often, lesser spotted woodpeckers will drum on a dead bit of beech, and it's got really loud resonance. So sometimes the lesser spots can sound louder than the great spots. So I wouldn't hang too much on how loud and how hard and how strong it sounds, more just how it's delivered. So we'll this is the drumming. We'll play the drumming now of the lesser spot. So that's, as I say, very machine gun-esque. I'm going to skip forward. We'll come back to lesser spot, but I'm just going to play the drumming of the great spot now, because we've been talking about both, so we've got direct comparison. So you can see there, the great spot is just a short drum with a long gap, like I say, and I'll just quickly play the. So it just goes on and on and on. And they can literally go on and on and on. Sometimes they'll just do a couple of bursts and then move on. Depends what stage of the season and what the lesser spot is up to and what part of the territory it's in. But we'll make a determined effort to try and hear lesser spot on Sunday morning, where we're meeting at Milliford. From there, there's 4 or 5 different territories we can walk through while we're listening to other things, and so we'll make an attempt to definitely hear that. So that's the drumming. But then there's the call as well. So that both both woodpeckers have calls. They're both quite distinctive. So the call of the lesser spotted, unlike anything else in the woodlands, really is it's a key, bit like a kestrel. I'll play it. So yeah, that can only be lesser spotted woodpecker. And again, both the males and the females do that. They often do it when they're agitated. So when something's going on they're not happy with, they'll make that call. The other day I got really lucky and I saw 5 lesser spotted woodpeckers all together in a tree, 3 males and 2 females, and they're having a right old barney with one another, and they're constantly giving that key call. In fact, if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have noticed them, because they were tiny little dots in the top of a tree. It's because of that call I picked them up. So that's a good thing. To more often than not, you'll hear that, or as often as the drumming, you'll hear that distinctive call. So lesser spotted woodpeckers occur all across the New Forest. They prefer broadleaf, but they nest in dead wood generally. So they like to nest in dead birch and alder. So by the very nature of that, they're often along streamways. And so where we're going on Sunday is along the Highland Water Streamway, which is a good area for lesser spots. So that's lesser spot. We'll talk a lot more about identification and stuff on Sunday. So we'll just quickly talk about, because I'm just conscious of the time, we'll talk about great spotted woodpecker. So we've already looked at the drumming. So it's that short drum, and they can be heard. They've got a long drumming period. So from, as it says there, from late December. It's always quite exciting hearing your first great spot drumming in December, because it feels like spring's coming. But then we'll play the call. So the call is always just seems grumpy and Well, let's play it. There we go. That's a great spot call. Quite different to the lesser spot call, and it just sounds like it's having a bad day, really, and it's just miffed. So yeah, that's one to listen out for, and you do hear that quite a lot across the forest. Great spotted woodpecker is really quite a common species across the forest, so once you get tuned into it, you'll hear it all over the place. So, oh, so next we've got Goldcrest versus Firecrest. I think these are the last two, if I remember rightly, that we're focusing on for this talk. And here we're just going to focus on song, because both species call, but their call is very, very similar, and it would be unfair to really waste too much time on that. We'll talk about that when we're in the field on Sunday. But we're going to look at song. So both species inhabit similar areas. So they're both in dense vegetation. They both like conifer. They both like the hollies. They seem happy sharing similar environments. Both are singing at the moment. Both are very high pitched, but that's where the similarities end. Their songs are quite different. In how they're delivered. So the gold crest, as it says there, is quite melodic. So it goes up and down, it dips up and down. And a lot of people relate the gold crest song to like a squeaky wheelbarrow wheel. So as you're pushing your wheelbarrow along a squeaky wheel that goes round and round with a little flourish at the end. So we'll play that. So that's rather fast. That's somebody pushing a wheelbarrow quite quickly. They do deliver that song more slowly as well, a slower tempo, but it's always the same. It's always the same, that maybe 3 or 4 repetitions followed by a flourish at the end. So yeah, that's the gold crest. The fire crest, by comparison, as I say, is still quite high pitched, but it's just a constant rising tempo. And of the two, it's the fire crest that really cuts through the forest. So it's the fire crest you can hear from quite a way off. With a gold crest, you have to be relatively close to pick it up. But I'll play the fire crest so we can hear the difference. Right, so there you go. So as I say, similar kind of, I'm not sure what the word is, the similar sort of pitch. The fire crest, I think, is slightly higher pitch than the gold crest, but quite different in how they deliver it. So the gold crest is that cycle of 3 or 4 repetitions with a flourish, whereas the fire crest is just rising all the time. And then, of course, if you're lucky enough to get a glimpse of them, you've got that big white supercilium, that big white stripe above the eye on the fire crest, which is quite a distinctive feature, stands out in the field. But they're difficult to see, so you can hear them quite often, but they're constantly on the move, so they're difficult to get your eye in. And just one little bit of advice as well: if you think you've got a gold crest or a fire crest and you want to look at it, I always look at it with my naked eye. I don't bother with binoculars when I first see it, because they're constantly moving. It's really hard to get in your binoculars. So look at it with your naked eye first of all, and look for that movement in the tree as it's moving around the tree, holly tree or conifer or whatever it happens to be in. And then as you get a feel for the direction it's going in, then get your binoculars on it. But yeah, try and pin it down naked eye first of all. Okay, so oh, that's going to go through those again. Oh, we've got one more, marsh tit. So we'll look out for marsh tit as well. I'm sure we'll hear marsh tit. I've heard we've been out today. I heard a lot of marsh tit singing today. Distinctive chip 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 call, which carries quite a long way. I must get a better picture of a marsh tit to put on this talk. So it's generally sung fairly low, and you get the male and the female together. So I'll quickly play marsh tit. There's loud and far carrying. I'll play it again in a second. But to me, of all the tits, the marsh tit sounds least like a tit, if you know what I mean. So you hear your blue tits, your great tits, your cold tits, they all sound kind of tit-like in their song. But the marsh tit doesn't really to me. It's almost almost a little bit Finchy. I'll play it again. There we go. So then they can do that repetitively for ages. So yeah, that's worth keeping an ear out for at this time of year. But the other distinctive thing is the pichu, and I always think of this, which is their contact call, and I always think of that almost like if a cartoon character was sneezing. I'll play it. Yeah, it's like it's having a little sneezing fit. And so that's quite distinctive. So when the male's doing his chip, 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 chip song, the female will do the pichu. But all year round, both the male and the female will do the pichu. So it's worth keeping an ear out for that. I'll play it again. There we go. So yeah, chances are we will have hopefully views and get to hear that on Sunday. That's gonna go. So right, finally, kind of nearly done it in the half hour. So we're meeting at 7 o'clock on Sunday at Milliford Bridge car park. Joining instructions have been sent out, but if anybody has any problem, do give us a shout beforehand. Though I have to add a word of warning that there is no phone reception at Milliford Bridge itself. So if you give us a shout, we'll be up from probably 4 on Sunday morning or half 4. So don't worry about phoning early if you have any trouble. Just give us a call, and then we'll see you there.
Muddy.
Oh yeah, that's the other thing. It is very muddy at Milliford at the moment. There are muddy sections that we'll be going through, so I definitely recommend, if you've got them, wearing welly boots. We were there the other day, and it's quite squelchy. It's kind of all right with walking boots, but feel a bit more secure with welly boots. Yes, and I think that's us. So what we're doing, we're recording this. So we'll email around a copy of the recording. I have to say I'm absolutely starving, so we're going to go and have something to eat first. So it might be half an hour or so, but we will we'll send it round. And then yeah, final slide. I'm sure we're all well aware of this, the New Forest Code. Just that we'll be sticking to on Sunday. So. Thank you very much. And we'll send that round, as I say, shortly. Okay. See you on Sunday. Looking forward to it. Okay. Thanks. Bye bye. End recording. Stop recording. Yeah.